Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit moon, sextile, or trine one's natal Chiron. Now, this transit may manifest. It could be about one's feelings, emotions, the needs, reactions, and family. May be in harmony with physical and emotional wounds and suffering. Now, I'm not saying that the family is approving of any suffering you may be going through, whether it be on an emotional, physical, or psychological level. What I'm saying, of course, is that they may be there for support and to care for you at this time if you are going through any kind of suffering at this point in time. If you have, say your natal Chiron is Scorpio, there can be some could be some issues in physical related issues with the colon, the prostate, the bladder, the reproductive system. Uh, and especially if this falls in the first or sixth house in your natal chart. The first house is associated with the physical body. The sixth house is connected with physical, with health-related issues that can be physical. And the thing about this too, now this transit is also can be more very connected with how you're feeling more, even like taking care of your own emotional wounds and suffering. I would say especially if you have your natal Chiron retrograde, because that I would say could accentuate and emphasize self-healing more so than Chiron direct. And it's also a time to where you might feel more of an ability to react and respond to matters that are associated with suffering, with anguish, with emotional, physical suffering. There is that it could be to somebody else. I mean, let's say if you have your natal Chiron in the fifth house in your chart, it could be somebody, romantic partner or child if applicable, if you have any children, that might be going through some suffering. Um, let's say if the natal Chiron going back to Scorpio or even Leo, if it's in the fifth house, maybe a child is going through some bullying in their school, and it might be a time where you really care more about maybe doing something about this at this point in time, more so than usual. Remember that the transit does not last for a prolonged or protracted period. It only lasts about 10 hours on average. So some of you are going to be sleeping during this time, or at least part of the transit. A lot of that, of course, is dependent on your time zone, your work schedule, your schedule in general, sleeping schedule at this time. And it may also be a time, I mean, this is about helping. And remember that Chiron is the wounded healer. It's about ways in which we can help others in which we're unable to help ourselves. The theory I have behind this is because we may be expending a lot of energy and time helping others in that manner that's connected with our Chiron placement. And by doing so, maybe we don't always have that drive, that motivation, have that energy to be helping ourselves in that same way. And we wind up, unfortunately, succumbing into anguish, to emotional suffering as a result in that part of our lives. And the thing about this, too, Chiron is associated with our deepest pain. And I have my natal Chiron in Aries in the 12th house, and a lot of this is connected with, I would say, the way that may manifest for me. Maybe it's lacking the courage and fortitude to confront hidden adversaries, people that may have been posing as friends but were really secretly enemies. It could be just lack of initiative and enterprise, which is tied into secret sorrows. I think a lot of that is how it manifests with me, and a lot of that is my deepest wounded suffering. And when you have the transit of the moon making a good aspect, a sextile or trine favorable aspect to the natal Chiron, well, there could be more of a time when you might be more willing to take care, those focus on that suffering and actually care about that. And family members, people you're close to home with, prominent women in your life, may be there as well to care for you during this time. And Chiron is also connected with depleted self-esteem, self-worth, how we feel about ourselves. And the thing about this is a time too where you have more, again, going to the support from the family, people you're close to home with, people in your family, people in your home, prominent women in your life. It's more apt for those people to be there, to be supportive during this time. The moon is also connected with our unconscious. So if there's something in the subconscious, maybe that's affecting you, maybe from as far as taking care of your own wounds and suffering at this time. This could be a time if there's some kind of fear, if there's feelings of inadequacy that maybe you weren't always cognizant of. That could be that time where you may be able to understand that and be able to take care of your own suffering. At this time, if the transit moon is in Gemini, say, maybe there was something where you may have felt like you were living vicariously through other people's lives, and maybe that had something to do with not maybe taking care of matters with the the natal Chiron, in trying to work through whatever it is, the suffering, the natal Chiron. If the natal, again, going back to the transit moon in Gemini as an example, say the natal Chiron is in Aries like mine, something like I just described with the transit of the moon in Gemini, sextile trine the natal Chiron in Aries, it might be connected with those students with Gemini vicariousness, perhaps on a subconscious level, may have affected you taking action, trying to do something, show initiative in taking action, showing enterprise, and doing something where you would be more aggressively creating your own life, as opposed to living through others as an example. Now another thing is but at the same time having a good aspect, give an understanding of that. The another thing about the Chiron as well, the fact it is connected with depleted self-worth, self-esteem, and how you feel about yourself. You have the natal Chiron in Leo. It might be associated with maybe your suffering connected with lack of extroversion or gregarious, or simply not being lauded and praised for your efforts. And it's a time where the family may be there more to give you that praise, as an example, understand where the suffering is, and they may be there to actually to give you that at this time. But the probably thing about it is, again, it's not a prolonged or protracted transit. Another thing too is Chiron can reflect where we feel inept and where there's a weakness, whether it's perceived or actually does exist. So natal Chiron is in Taurus and/or the second house. Say it could be issues with self-worth, or generating one's own income, being financially more dependent, I would say self-reliant. And it can be where there might be just some issues when you have this transit. It's more an opportunity to react to those issues, as an example, because the moon is connected with responses and reactions. Now, this is another thing, is that Chiron is associated with the key. It could be the key to working our way out of the anguish that is connected with the suffering with the natal Chiron placement. And the family, prominent women in your life, people you're close to home with, those people may be beneficial and advantageous in helping you find that key, I would say, at this time, more so than usual. Trying to resolve issues that might be tied into very powerful suffering that is associated with your natal Chiron placement. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another way this transit may manifest, it could be about how feeling you may feel, which is the moon, more like helping and healing, which is Chiron, others in general. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Chiron is in Gemini in the first house, it might be helping others, perhaps they might have some communication or speech issue, which could be connected with Gemini, and could be a physical, which is the first house impairment. Another way this transit may manifest, it could be with the mother and family, which is the moon, may be more in favor of how you may be dealing with your own deepest pain. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Chiron is in Aries in the 12th house, like in my case, it might be the releasing of the anger constructively. Anger, of course, is associated with Aries in solitude and seclusion, which is the 12th house. Now, also, too, this transit may be auspicious to responding, which is the moon, to physical wounds and suffering. Let's say, for example, if the natal Chiron is in the zodiac sign Cancer, it can be some physical issue with the breast, the chest, the ribs, stomach, water retention. And also, too, you may be more apt to readily express your feelings, which is the moon, regarding your emotional suffering, which is Chiron. Now, for example, if the natal Chiron is in Pisces in the 11th house, there might be issues with dealing with a deceptive or duplicitous friend, or one that may have betrayed you. And maybe the issue the way to resolve that is through Pisces forgiveness and compassion toward those same people. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.